You've covered all 5 49ers Super Bowl championship teams. You know a championship team when you see one. Is this Niners team a team of destiny?
I think it is. I'm going to go. Excuse me, guys. I'm going to go slow. This is a hell of a team. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can feel it. This is a better team than the team that lost to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
I'm not saying they can beat Kansas City, but it's a better team.
Than the team that lost to Kansas City in the Super Bowl, or the team that lost to Kansas City this year?
This year.
Okay, got it.
I think it's a better team than lost to Kansas City, especially the defense. Oh, and especially the offense, both of them.
Yes.
When the 5 championships that I covered, at a certain point you get the feeling, wow, this is a hell of a team. Mm-hmm. And now, could Philly beat them? Could Dallas beat them? Sure. I don't think Minnesota could beat them. But could they beat Philly? Could they beat Dallas? Hell yeah. Philly, their quarterback situation is a little scrambled. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how good their defense is. Dallas, I've never been impressed by that coach. I think the Niners are the best team in the NFC. I do. And I think
I agree.
you get a feeling about a team that they say before they got on the field, we're going to kick ass. Mm-hmm. Like, not can we kick ass, we're going to kick ass. And don't you get that feeling about these guys?
I think Fred Warner kind of verbalized that this week when he was answering my question. He stands at the 50-yard line, stares down at the quarterback, and basically tells him, we're going to kick your ass.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the feeling. Sorry, guys. Now, in the Super Bowl, that'll be very interesting. But we're not there yet. But I think this is a Super Bowl team, Mickey. What do you think?
I think they're going to win the NFC, and I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. And then we don't know who they're going to face. The one thing is, they do have the feel of destiny. The Brock Purdy story, the last pick. It's almost like, like whoever's pulling the strings found like that would be like a really good story.
It's like mythology.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like mythology. It feels like too good of a story for them not to go all the way. It feels a lot like the 1999 Rams team to me with Kurt Warner. It's like, he was bagging groceries and now he's the MVP and now he wins the Super. It feels like that. But I just want to say that, again, this team hasn't beaten anyone great yet. There aren't that many great teams, maybe 3 or 4. Maybe the Niners are one of them. The Niners faced one of them and lost by a lot. The best team they faced is the Chargers, who do have a very good quarterback. He didn't have his starting wide receivers, and he got hit hard in the head in the first half. 94 team that won the Super Bowl. That's the one team I saw that won the Super Bowl that I remember. I remember that year they faced Dallas Week 11, and that was the game. Everyone knew Dallas was the team the Niners had to go through. They lost to Dallas the last 2 NFC Championship games. They beat Dallas 21-14. That was a huge win, and it felt like it validated the Niners. They had lost by like 40 earlier in the season. The Niners don't have that win. They faced Kansas City and lost to Kansas City. So if they make it to the Super Bowl and get by Minnesota and Philly, which they absolutely could, and they have to face Kansas City again, I don't know.
Okay, what's nice is there is a specter of doubt, and that makes the story more interesting.
Absolutely. Yes, it does.
Do I think Kansas City beat them up?
Beat
them up. I don't think that would happen.
Was it 44 to 23, something like that? 44 to 21. It was a lot.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen again. Could Kansas City beat them? Absolutely. Could they beat Kansas City? Absolutely. So that's the specter of doubt, and that makes the story more interesting. But I don't think there's a specter of doubt in the NFC.
No, absolutely not. In fact, when Jimmy Garoppolo went down, you thought, wow, there they go. They're done, especially when Deebo Samuel got hurt too. But now it looks like they're better with Brock, and it seems like Philly, they haven't faced anyone great either, and they don't seem to be as good as they were a couple months ago. So it looks like right now the Niners are clearly the best team in the NFC, even though they haven't faced anyone great. And it's just a question of, if they make it to the Super Bowl, which future Hall of Fame quarterback are they going to have to beat? Yeah.
And that would make the Super Bowl absolutely dramatic, absolutely interesting.
Dad, I keep wanting to come back to Super Bowls you covered. 1984, the Niners had already won a Super Bowl, but they beat Dan Marino that year. And Dan Marino was like the big deal, right? He was huge, and they made him look pretty ordinary in that Super Bowl.
That was at Stanford Stadium.
You were there.
They it's very interesting. They really made Miami look like a second-rate team. They really
Beat him
handled
by a
them.
lot.
Yeah, and Dan Marino never won a championship, did he?
No, he didn't.
No, and that was his shot. And they made him. He was a great quarterback, but they made him look immobile and ordinary. And Iggy, I want to tell you, there was a history between Walsh and what's his name? The coach
Shula, yeah.
They were quite not antagonists, but
Competitive.
They were competitive, and I told you the story that Shula at one point wrote a letter to Bill, very angry at Bill for something Bill had said, and Bill wanted to make it up, but he didn't know how to handle it. He said, I'll send him a case of wine. That's what Bill always did, a case of Chardonnay, which is exactly what a man's man like Shula wouldn't want, right?
Exactly,
It's
right.
exactly what he wouldn't want. And I said, you need to write him a letter. And Bill said, would you write it for me? And I did. I wrote it for him. And
That's amazing.
Yeah, I did.
That's
and he
amazing.
said,
You saved the relationship between Bill Walsh and Don Shula.
I did. And Bill read it, and he goes, this is really good, Lowell. This is really good. And then he had his secretary, Jane, type it up, and he signed it. And the other thing was they had played a game, a preseason game, and it might have been in London. Sometimes I get facts wrong, but they had to arrange every day. They were training together, Miami and the Niners, and I'm not sure what year. And but I think it was before the Super Bowl, and it was clear that Shula took over the meetings, and Bill sat as if he were an assistant coach, because the two coaching staffs met every morning, and I was told from someone on that staff that it really pissed Bill off.
Right.
So
But you had to defer to Don Shula because he had
absolutely
he was the guy. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if it happened before that Super Bowl, it was sweet revenge for Bill.
Right. Bill had to sit there with a smile and be polite, and then he kicked the shit out of him in the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Dad, but what I want to know, I know you don't remember, but were the Dolphins looked at as, did most people think the Dolphins would win that because they had the hotshot quarterback with the big arm? Or
No. The Niners had already won. It was essentially a home game for them.
That's
and
right.
they had Joe Montana.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. And
true.
Iggy, I got to tell you, again, team of destiny.
Yeah.
I never thought Miami would win that game.
Right.
I never thought Miami would win that game. And you know, it's interesting. It was at the Stanford Stadium. So, you know, this parking is a big problem. But I went to Stanford, and I was dear friends with the head of the French department. So he said, hey, Lowell, why don't you just park at my house? And so I parked at his house, at the prof's house. And I just walked to the game like I would have when I was a student. I had my little computer in a bag, and I walked to the game. When it was over, I finished typing. I walked back to the prof's house and drove home.
Wow.
It was like the game was in my backyard.
That is so cool. You know, you could argue, I didn't live through this. I was born in 88, but just looking at the stats, you could argue that was the best Niner team of all time. They lost one game that year. They had the number one defense in the league. I think they gave up fewer points per game than this current Niners defense. And they didn't have Jerry Rice, which is interesting. That was the team that was like the year before they got Rice. And I think their leading receiver was Roger Craig and Dwight Clark. And they kicked the shit out of everyone.
Did they still have Freddie Solomon at that time?
I'm not sure if they had Freddie Solomon.
He was a wonderful wide receiver.
They may have. But yeah.
And Dwight Clark was very good for the things he could do. And he was a terrific downfield blocker. He was a tough guy. He was a tough guy. And again, I felt with that team, Iggy, this team's going all the way. And you have intimations with the current team of that this team, let me put it like this. If they get eliminated in the NFC, we're going to leave the Super Bowl out of it. I would be shocked. That's what I'm saying. If they get eliminated by any team in the NFC, I would be shocked.
Yeah, it just this reminds me of the Rams. The Rams team from '99, the Kurt Warner story. All of a sudden, you've never heard of this quarterback, and they have the best offense in the league. And
Yeah.
it's like, this isn't real. And was that team, they beat the Titans in the Super Bowl. They faced the Titans in the regular season and lost. Kind of like the Niners if they faced the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So maybe there's something. I don't know. There's a lot of mythology going on right now. Brock Purdy was born during that Kurt Warner 99 season. He went to Iowa State. Kurt Warner went to Northern Iowa. Ooh, Twilight Zone.